Listeners, hello, what up?
Listeners. Okay.
Yeah,
start,
I'm not good at this. I'm just kind of winging it.
Audience?
That's right.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Welcome to the new episode of Crew Expendable. Neil is not here, so don't wait for him to show up. I would love to hear that.
Though.
Please give me one.
Hey everybody, it's me, Neil. I'm here to do Project Crew Expendable, the spin-off series from the Crew Expendable podcast. Today we're going to be talking with special effects artist who worked on the film Aliens vs. Predator Requiem. And the name that you go by is Matt.
Matt, yeah. More like host expendable. Lol. Yeah, I worked on AvP 2 Requiem, which we got a guideline to say the entire thing. So Alien versus Predator 2 Requiem.
They said 2 in the guideline.
In the guideline, it was AvP 2 that was the short version, and then Alien versus Predator 2 Requiem. And then I don't think
it does
that
not.
actually
The
appears
official
on film.
title of the movie is Aliens vs. Predator Requiem. There isn't a 2 in it.
Yeah, I was employed there doing special effects, mechatronics, like making machine parts and mechanisms and helping, like, I was low on the totem pole, so like helping sculptors, moving boxes, like running machines, you know, doing some of the less creative and more like gross and messy work, but it also involved a lot of like being stuffed in an interesting spot because I was like small, handy, and expendable.
Yeah. I on the main episode that we talked about the movie itself, I think all of us were like highly praising the practical effects that were in the movie, because this was a time when especially CGI stuff was so shitty.
Yeah, we
Yes.
all three of us were a really big fan of the practical effects, and like even people I know who like actively hate the movie are like, I have to admit, the physical effects look really good.
Yeah, that was a big complaint from the effects people after the movie came out, is that like there was a lot of attention put on detail, and when we were under scrutiny, it's sort of like if you have to study something really like closely, you're like, this is going to be on the test, this is going to be on the test, and then it isn't on the test, you're like, fuck you. Like a lot of the attention to detail on the props was like really closely scrutinized, and then you might notice in the whole movie it's raining and it's shot through the thumb hole of a bowling ball.
Yeah, one of our big complaints about the movie is that the entire thing is practically completely black and you can barely see anything, and there's effectively no lighting. Yeah.
Like, how can we make the Pacific Northwest look like the Nostromo?
But, like, when you can see them, the effects actually do look really good. I just wish that we would have been able to see them. Yeah. That would have been nice, you know?
Yes. Yeah, like, the people working on it was, I think the head of the mechanical department was Dave Panicus, who has worked at ADI. There's the pressure cooker. That was like Dave Panicus was a long time guy at ADI doing like Evolution and a bunch of the Alien franchise. I think he was even there for Starship Troopers. And then the head of sculpting, like the head of like the look and feel of the monsters, was Steve Wang, who sculpted the original Predator. So like it was a great team to do the job, and like a lot of the props were really like smartly done. I learned a ton like about how to do shit really good. But the overall effect was sort of like diminished because you can't see nothing.
I would like to ask you, just as a more general question, you personally, how do you feel about the Alien franchise? Like, dislike, thumbs up, thumbs down?
You know, like, I like it on two levels. I'm like generally like in favor of it or nostalgic for it. I don't really like follow any of the current properties. I remember liking the comics. I think there was a series called Enclave, maybe. Like there were a bunch of comics about like, what if, you know, you cloned an alien, but it had a human brain? What if there was like a big robot that was like completely alien proof and was like a killing machine, just killed thousands of them at a time? Like, just, it's a good framework for like fun sci-fi one-offs. And then that's sort of the structure under which I like the original like movie, the aliens. Like, I kind of like it as a framework for just an interesting haunted house or like sci-fi high concept. Like, what if it happens on, like, what if people are like embedded in a planet that everybody already knows is all aliens, and they're like, you know, their daily thing is to try and keep hidden from them or whatever. Yeah, I like that. The more recent movies have been less interesting to me, partially because they've been more trying to like find the backstory and lore of what if there was a cool bug. And it's like, I don't really care so much about the lore as like just coming up with interesting things to do with them. And so like Prometheus hit me like less hard. I wasn't interested in Romulus. But like I still have fun. I like have it's
fair.
got a soft spot with me.
All right. Same question, but about Predator instead.
Yeah. I haven't checked in with Predator in a grip. Liked the original 2. I liked, like, the Predator 2 is like such a time capsule. It's like so many other movies where like Eddie Murphy turns into a vampire. It's so many like it's similar to so many movies about like, what if the Predator was in the hood, where it's like, oh, what if he met a pimp? What if the Predator met a pimp? What if the Predator went to like a cool underground club? And so like that has some charm to it. But the more recent Predators, there's a thing about like, I get the vibe, and maybe this is movie trailers, like I get the vibe that they don't know it's schlock, where it's like, this is an important story about a warrior. This is about a warrior facing his true spirit. And it's like, I don't know, it's a big scary monster. Come on.
There was one other question I wanted to ask. I wanted you to go on record. Do you think Aliens vs. Predator Requiem is a good movie?
No. I don't know
That's
if I've
fair.
ever worked on a good movie. You can find me on IMDb. I worked on like Team America World Police, an epic movie. Like, I don't know if I have a...
Unfortunately,
I
have seen both of the movies you just listed, so...
Oh, man. If you watched Epic movie,
here's the
I'm
thing.
sorry,
the
man.
reason I've seen it is because it had such a reputation for being a very bad movie that me and a friend of mine, every time we would make a bet or dare each other, the penalty for failing is that we would have to go and rent and watch Epic movie from like the rental place down the street.
Oof. Yeah, I think that's one of the few places where my name is fully in the credits and I'm not credited as the studio.
I did notice, I did actually look, your name is actually in the credits for this movie. It is. I actually got a screenshot of it and then circled it just to make sure that I knew where it was.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Well, okay. Yeah, like, I mean, I liked working at ADI. I liked... You know, there are a bunch of things about AvP2 Requiem there are a bunch of things about... I'm going to start calling it Requiem. Yeah. There are a bunch of things about it that, like, I liked. I like a commitment to practical effects. I like, you know, trying to do a new thing, new idea. But, like, I feel that Predator-Alien Hybrid is, like... It's a really obvious idea. And if you're going to do a really obvious idea, you have to do something additional, where it's like, if you do the really obvious thing, I think aesthetically you kind of need to be like, okay, So we're going to turn everything else up, like we're power scaling. And so if you do Terminator 2, what if there's another Terminator? You have to do something to be like, here's what causes that to jump up, where like the good guys have their own Terminator. And so it's Terminator versus Terminator. Here, the first movie had an alien versus a predator. Had aliens versus predators. The second movie has aliens versus a predator versus an alien predator hybrid. And it's like, that doesn't really increase the stakes or the scope of it. It should be like, the predator has like a super gun, or like there's a chase involved, like has to be something to hang the action on. But it's just like, what if these two creatures are sort of walking around the woods?
Kind of a weird idea, because it's like an alien versus a predator versus a creature that is an alien and a predator combined, which is still just kind of an alien versus a predator, Yeah, I get you. Yeah.
Inside, it has internal conflict. Yeah,
that's right.
It wants to hunt itself.
There needs to be somewhere to go. Like, it feels like they were like, all right, let's do the craziest thing we can think of right now, which is mix the two together. And then where do you go from there? Because that's not enough, I think.
Yeah. It's like, epic mealtime, or like it is ice cream soup. And it's like, the way that becomes interesting is if you find some way to make it over the top. And they didn't do that other part of like, okay, how is this huge? Because we're doing a silly idea, and if you do a silly idea and you take it seriously, that can be really fun, like Mad Max, where it's like, but you need to figure out a way to tell the audience, like, both do balls out things and also tell them, like, the reason why we're taking this seriously, despite the fact that it's stupid, is so that we can do these things that we get to show you.
And they struggled to show much in the movie at all because of just how dark it actually was.
Yes. Like, there were a bunch of like cool props that were supposed to show how like the alien predator hybrid is like stronger than both. Where we had like a pneumatic rig that was like a waist up thing on a rail. That was meant to be able to like fully grip a stuntman by like the throat. It was supposed to be able to pick up and throw people, like throw wires. Like, we weren't literally throwing people, but it was supposed to like really sell that by being like super solid on the base. And like, I love that notion, but in the movie, it like isn't used to much effect. I think there's like one scene where the predator alien hybrid is like charging and he's obscured by trees, and then like the throat grab is like a half a second. Like, it's not like, you kind of want to sell those things. Like, you want to like really put a button on it.
Yeah. On that note, is there stuff that was like a lot of time was put into behind the scenes that just never made it to film?
It was the look of the hybrid. Like, Steve Wang also did, like, he did the principal sculpting for the Guyver and directed Guyver Dark Hero. He's like,
that movie rocks.
He's a really talented sculptor. I think his current company is Legacy Effects. I think he's the head of Legacy Effects. I could be wrong about that one. But he's like really excellent sculptor. Really good at selling like biomechanical alien. Like, I think he was also principal sculptor on the Thing remake.
Okay.
And if you've ever seen like the making of the Thing remake, they ditched a whole bunch of the practical effects for digital, and the practical effects, like the behind the scenes, like there's a bunch of cool ideas that got left on the floor. Because
when you said that, my first thought was, I don't remember any practical effects.
My understanding was that they made the movie with practical effects, and then afterwards they went back and replaced all of them and like overlaid all the practical effects with CGI. And even the director was like, "Oh my God, what are you doing?"
Yeah, it's because whenever you do that, you're like, what if all these characters were obviously wearing wigs? Because like, if you're going to do that, you're going to have a lot of reshoots on a green screen. And it's like, what if everybody's hairdo is different now because they're on a different movie? And so they're wearing a wig in an obviously green screen shot.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like it's on ADI's YouTube page. I think you can find it on their YouTube. But like the thing that got left on the cutting room floor there were a lot of designs for Alien Predator hybrids and like star moments, like hero shots that you could do with them. And that's something that I feel like would have been really, really juicy, where, you know, like some movies are made by like, you know, an investment company. Some movies are made by like a weirdo pervert. Some like the thing that's actually like forming the movie. Sometimes it's a weird team. Sometimes it's like, you know, it's like David Lynch's Dune, where he was just like, well, just make like a module that can, he says words, weirding words, I want you, and like somebody goes away and cooks on that idea and comes back and he's like, wonderful, I'm going to use it all. Oh, wow. So like there are different ways you can let different parts lead, and I feel like Steve had a bunch of good ideas for like, here's a hero shot you could do if we combine the alien and the predator like this. Here's like a novel way to do the mouth parts. Here's a kill that you could do with that'd be a cool shot. And so he was trying to design a bunch of tricks into the creature so that you could use them for various interesting shots, where it's like, here's a way that its body could articulate. It could like unfold in a cool way where it sort of like looks bulkier, and then its arms are way longer than you think because it's kind of tucked in. And so it's got like a predator like profile, and then it like unfolds and it's like, whoa, it's a different thing. Like to try and sell different aspects of like, what is alien, what is predator, how do you distinguish the two? Because one of the things you run into when trying to like visually design a hybrid, when the other two things are also in the movie, is it's gonna look similar to those. Like it's gonna be samey, where like the alien in the original Alien is supposed to kind of look like the Nostromo, so that it could be anywhere. And like the sort of difference between the inside and the outside scene, well, there are a bunch of different flavors of interior that all have alienness to them. And so like when the lights go out, the like Nostromo and the alien planet and the like space jockey, like they all have a similarity that starts to be like frighteningly claustrophobic.
Yeah.
And that's a thing to keep in mind when you're like designing a movie around like an aesthetic, where it's like, how do people distinguish this other interesting thing if it looks basically like a midpoint between the two other things that we have in the movie? And I think the coolest things that got left on the cutting room floor are Steve's experiments trying to figure out like, how does this look vastly different? Maybe it's like super spindly, or maybe it's got like 4 arms, or maybe it's like got bulk, like predator bulk in like its arms and shoulders in like a way that makes it really triangular, and then it has like an extended spine and spindly legs. Like it's got to look like something that isn't just like, that could be an alien, it could be a predator, I don't know.
Yeah, that was what kind of my main takeaway after watching the movie. Is one of my complaints about it was mainly due to the lighting, but like by the time the movie was over, I was like, I still I watched the entire movie and I'm still not quite sure what the alien predator hybrid even sort of like looked like. Cuz you can't really tell. He just seems to kind of just act like an alien. Yeah.
He's tall for no reason.
Did you refer to him as Chet?
No. I referred to him as the Praline.
All right, that's fair.
Okay. On comicvine.gamespot.com in the Predalien tab, it says the Predalien is a queen and was given the name Chet by the production team of the movie.
She's a queen. She's given.
Yeah, that was also one thing I noticed, is that during that entire time you were talking about it, you consistently referred to it as the alien predator hybrid, which is funny to me because during our episode on the movie, the three of us all agreed that we fucking hate the word predalien and wanted to not use it. And so was that like was that like how you guys had to internally refer to that creature as the alien predator hybrid, or what?
Ooh, That's a good question. I remember hearing Predalien, and that is why I started saying
fair, yeah.
Praline. But I don't remember if that was like a command that came from on high. So like at my position, so like the process is usually like, you have the heads of the effects studio are sort of liaising with the director and the funders, like the people who are producing the movie, and trying to decide like what the principal shots that need effects are going to be, and how to like chop them up into like props, where it's like for every hero shot, like you might have a single prop, but then somebody might look at the beats of this moment and be like, it'd be easier to have like one like torso, like a torso animatronic, and then maybe there'd be like a close up on the mouth or something that is like a match cut or something, where we like zoom in on it and get the details and the drooling in a separate prop. And like things like what to refer to the creature as, and like where we're like naming things, those often appear on documents and in meetings and discussions that were like way over my head. And so like what I got downstream was people just generally like would start talking about a different thing or making a different thing, and you'd just sort of like generally absorb like, there has been a sea change here. We're calling this the Predalien or whatever today.
Go ahead.
No, just like in the process of the production, were you at any point skeptical of the final product?
Alien versus Process 2 Requiem. So like, yes, like the impression that I got, and like this is with, fucking 20 years, this is in retrospect, like more than 20 years. So like I have lots of opportunities to be like, I always thought the right thing. But like I remember at the time thinking like Steve Wang, you can hear probably in my voice and the way I'm describing, I've got some admiration for him. Like I worked for him on Kamen Rider Dragon Knight, which was a TV show that he directed. Yeah. And I like Steve. I think he's got like just an unbelievable sculpting talent, and he's really interested in doing like visually new things. Like I think that's part of why he's good, is that he has like this artist mindset about like I want to do new stuff. I want to like figure out visually new things. He has a style that's distinctive to him, but I feel like that is an asset. You want to, when he comes up with an idea for like, I think this would look cool in a movie, you as like a finance guy should probably be like, me taking this to my 10-year-old son is probably not as good of a baseline of what is interesting as the guy who invented Predator.
Right.
And so I noticed a lot of that, where like ideas that I'm like, that really cooks, like ways to make the hybrid face hugger look, or ways to like make the Predator alien look visually distinctive, or like sculpts of what the principal predators could look like. I would see them get like refined into things that looked more bland and generic. That I think one thing that the studio system kind of does is things that are weird get turned into things that are normal, in the same way, like, I don't know, I've been trying to get in shape, and like if you don't know better, you'll avoid things that feel weird, but it's actually like, no, you've been doing it wrong, but you've gotten used to it, and so you're not able to go out of your comfort zone. This is the right way to do it. It feels weird to you because you're wrong. And so,
I can definitely see how the studio system would kind of sand this down into what the finished product ended up being.
Yeah, and it's not for like lack of talent, I don't think. Like I don't know much about the director. I remember hearing a thing or reading an interview where he was like, "Oh yeah, the rainy stuff was like a stylistic choice, trying to sort of do that as an art statement." I don't buy that as I don't buy make it dark as like a stylistic choice, because if you're going to have really stylized lighting, like one of the things you want to do is sort of design with stylized lighting in mind. and that never really
Yeah,
came
gotcha.
up in the prop department.
Yeah.
And so, like, I don't get the impression that there was a really tight-knit connection between the visuals, like how this thing is going to look on film, and like the things that were being made to like fill out the visual world. So I like, there's stuff in there that I like, but you know, throughout the whole process, I was sort of like, you changed what? And it would be, it to me, it felt like ideas getting swapped out for nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I guess that like it ended up feeling less like, oh, wow, this is like a thing that I'm feeling like passionate about, like this is going to be a huge thing, or is like this is just I'm just going to work right now. Like that type of feeling.
Yeah, well, the thrill was getting to work on an Alien franchise movie, a thing other people know that it's a thing I could maybe hang my hat on, and I got to have like some cool experiences in it with like, you know, we recycle, special effects companies often get the props back after the movie's done and have to figure out what to do with them because like you don't own the IP. There may be some value in saving it for later to like recycle, but most of the time, like you're going to do complete resculpts of everything. And so like it's often most useful for parts, like breaking stuff down. And so like, you know, being able to crawl inside of like the Queen Alien from the last movie to break it down into like parts we could use on this one was cool. But in terms of like the day to day, it's very few projects that I've ever worked on in my life where I get the impression like, oh, this is going to be a hit. This is really going to knock it out of the park. And so this was an early experience in being like, I've got to sort of like find my guiding lights. It's I don't know. It's like the worst idea of all time. Are you familiar with? I'm talking about somebody else's podcast on your podcast.
That's fine.
Oh no, I'm familiar with it.
Yeah, we're like, you know, they're doing a horrible thing. They're like doing something that is kind of like grating, and it's like what we've got to do inside of this is find the good things about this bad thing to find some joy in it, or I'll kill myself. And for me, it's a lot of that. Where if my dream is to work on something really good, like, you know, making $25 an hour as a like a machinist is not a great way to like leverage yourself into working on something that is like highly artistically validating.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
I got a message from Neil because I asked him if there was anything that he wanted me to ask on his behalf or anything. And he said he wanted it on record that I wanted on record that I too enjoyed the practical effects of the film, and I'm glad the movie went that way. I guess if anything, I'm interested in the design choices behind the main predator, Wolf, to make him not just smaller than the predators in the first AvP were, but also about the choice to give him a, quote, lead singer of a 2000s emo band look. So can you speak on that at all?
Yeah. Wow. You know, one of the weird things about Predator, like, so Alien is a full body costume, full body monster, where like it would look really weird to put a scarf on the alien.
Yep.
Where like you can't style Alien on set, and so you can't be like, what choices did the alien make today when it was dressing itself? And so it's like, oh, this alien is very dewy. This alien puts on bronzer. Like you can't do that. But predators wear makeup. They have like jewelry, they have trophies. Like the thing I'm sort of like ramping up to the answer
fair.
I don't know. So that the thing about Predator and the individual Predator styles is like, I get the impression you can sort of like style it like a costume, and so you have like a base muscle suit, and then the debate about like what is the Predator, what is its vibe, can sort of be done in a more producery way where you're like, can I see the rendering with eyeshadow? No, take that out. Different hair? I like that hair. Like you can sort of do that in a way that you can't with like a full body costume where the sculpt
Gotcha.
is the entire character.
Yeah.
And so,
Okay.
yeah.
On that note, I like they do have a lot of decoration. They have a lot of like their little trophy things that they hang off their little belt or necklace
Yeah.
or whatever. Are there any like Easter eggs that you remember of like, oh, this will be a fun thing to add to the Predator costume or Predator kit or whatever?
Yeah, like there weren't too many things that were like super sneaky that we did. Like the tracking guns are Gleebled. Greebled. Gleeble is a company that makes a tensile testing system that I'm dealing with in my day job as a mechanical engineer. They're Greebled. There are a bunch of props that we gave additional textures, sort of like the Star Destroyer scene at the beginning of A New Hope, where there's a lot of texture to try and imply like complexity and level of scale. And so we used a bunch of parts from tank models and airplanes and like, plastic gunpla style, like, plastic little guns and wiring and tube that came off of sprues. So there's a bunch of that trying to add texture to the like more technological aspects of like the guns and the like the Pip Boys that the Predators have.
Yeah.
But I don't remember too much like sneaking in like, this is a miniature human skull implying that there's a pygmy race of humans out there that they hunted. Like I don't remember any especially fun gags that we put in there.
Okay. Yeah, I'm always curious when I see. Like, you always hear the stories of, for aliens, all the Space Marines were given their colonial marine armor like months in advance, like during their filming and for rehearsal and stuff like that, and they were like encouraged to customize it, during the rehearsals. So like all of the little engravings and everything that they did on their plate armor and stuff like that was like. It's supposed to seem more genuine, and I didn't know if there was like any kind of like that level of like, oh, we're gonna put a little, like you're saying, like a little pygmy human skull on the necklace to just add a little bit of lore to the kit.
Yeah, it's so tempting to be like cynical '90s guy, being like, well, that would have taken ideas, like. I don't want to speak too ill of the direction because I had like no view on it. But the reason I think the movie kind of came out generic is because there did feel like a pressure to just sort of like do the job, get it done, stick to the script, like just keep chugging along. Yeah. And I think that kind of like improvisation and allowing there to be like stuff that management can't really predict, to have things not on rails where it's like, your actor might decide that their character is like, has something that might not look good in retrospect, like a Tropic Thunder. Like they might make some choices and you're sort of trusting them to be like, I'm going to trust your choices, that you're not going to do something that sucks for the movie, that you believe in this the way I believe in this, and we're both going to like try to make this the best thing that we can. Like I kind of feel like there was like an amount of top down like you're not making choices here, because that would spoil like how refined we're trying to make the movie in terms of like, here are the beats, here are the action shots, the monster needs to look correct, and that like at every point meant that new weird things or inventive, funny, different, idiosyncratic things didn't make their way in.
Okay. I think the only other production department type question I had is the weapon that Wolf has, the star blade.
Yeah.
Is that a Krull reference? Like,
there's no way it can be not a Krull reference.
Okay.
Like that's kind of impossible, but it is like a that's another thing where it's like I would have wanted to see somebody get even weirder with it, because Krull is like, it's kind of a pull, I also think that all sci-fi from the 80s and 90s is also like, there's an esoteric part about it because, culture has moved on so far and like I'm old, but also it has been tilled over so much, like just like digging around looking for worms, that it also feels like anything that comes from like an 80s or 90s sci-fi thing is also like free. It's already been given to you on a silver platter.
Yeah.
And so like I feel like it couldn't possibly, given the age of the people working on it, it couldn't possibly been like missed as like a thing that is a lot like the principal weapon in Crawl. And like if you wanted to take it weirder and make it look more unique, you would have gone with something like, the flying guillotine, or you would have like made a deeper pull.
Yeah,
so it feels like it couldn't not be, at least like knowing that it is very like the Krull weapon, but I don't know if it's actually a reference or if it's just like, oh, that was cool. Nobody will notice.
That's fair.
Okay, fair enough. Because
that's like that's a symmetrical flying glaive, or is it a claw?
In Krull or in for the wolf?
In Krull, it's a symmetrical flying glaive. It looks like,
yeah.
It's a disc with knives sticking out symmetrically along. In Predator, is it asymmetrical?
In my recollection, it is symmetrical, but I'm looking at pictures right now, and it does look like it's one-sided.
Yeah, I definitely thought it was more of a disc, but maybe I was wrong. Maybe I don't remember it as well as I thought I did, but that's true.
Hey, too dark to see.
Yeah, because I don't remember it doing that thing like in Blade where he throws the like shuriken and it cuts all the vampires in a circle around the room and then returns to him. I don't remember if there's a scene like that where Wolf throws the blade and it like is aerodynamic. I feel like he uses it like a bear
there's
claw.
a scene where he throws it and it impales a woman against a wall and just kind of sticks there.
Badass. I hate women. Yes.
And but speaking of hitting things.
This is for Gamergate. You
That's
bitch.
right. Speaking of hitting things in a big circle, though, he also has that big whip that he uses to like slice aliens up with. What was the deal with that? How'd that work? Or was that like all CG?
Oh man,
All right.
I think it was all CG. I don't remember seeing that prop. I think we made a handle. Like I do not remember that prop. Like the ones that I like physically worked on, I worked on a bunch of like alien. So one of the like dirtiest jobs is like sticking stuff together. You usually have a lot of sculpted pieces, and then you have to figure out how to make them work together. And so like there'll be like machined frames for things, and then you'll do castings over them, or you'll knit them together with like fiberglass. And so a lot of my stuff was like figuring out how to get mechanisms into like the Predator guns or the alien heads so they could drool, or so we could draw the lips back, stuff like that. And out of all the props I worked on, I do not remember the whip at all.
Yeah, like I said, it might have just been fully CG. I don't know. So
yeah, that sounds plausible. Like it's another kind of thing where it's like you could train an actor to do that, or have a stuntman who knows how to use a bullwhip, and it'd be like need to be handled on set, and there'd be an element of danger, and you couldn't shoot it however you wanted because you'd have to shoot it around what a bullwhip can actually do. And there's a certain like safety and security in being like, we're going to do it in post, and so I'm going to stand over like a special effects engineer, like a digital effects artist, and I'm going to stand over his shoulder for 8 hours being like, no, make it blue, show me lightning, no, take that away. And like that's going to be how the shot goes. Enhance, rotate by 90.
I thought Bob was going to say something.
So,
I was actually going to ask you if you could go into a little bit more specificity about like what you actually did on the movie itself.
Sure. Yeah. So I was like a low man on the totem pole. Is that politically correct to say anymore?
Let's hope so.
Maybe.
Yeah. I was the lowest man in the castle dung midden. I was scooping up the
I got
deepest
you.
and heaviest shit. I found it to be like, it was interesting being an all-rounder because like I was doing mostly mechanisms. So like figuring out how to machine and build and prototype, and most of that, it's probably different now, but at the time it was very little CAD, a whole lot of like drawing and like physical prototyping. And there weren't 3D printers. There were like a couple of people in the industry like experimenting with 3D printing. And so you had to sort of use a lot of rules of thumb to try and get stuff as correct as you could, as fast as you could. And so a lot of my stuff would be, I'd be given a series where someone would know we're doing 9 like background alien costumes, and we need ways for the tails and like the pieces that are going over the shoulder and like supports that are going in for the head. We need a bunch of machine parts so these like snap together on set nice and solid, and like that the spine of the person communicates with the tail in a way that it doesn't look fakey fake, so that they're like union together. And so a ton of my labor on that was to build all of the interfacing parts and build like small mechanisms for like predator tracking guns, where it's like there was a shoulder assembly, we needed a bunch of different angled metal pieces to like make the guns lie down on the back, sort of like, you know, angel wings, and then flip up and around. And so there were a couple of angles and like cutouts for servos that we needed to make in them, and then those mechanisms needed to be as like skeletonized as possible to fit inside of the sculpt that we had done. And so like it was tracking guns, it was aliens heads and tails, it was drooling and mouth animatronics, it was so like fluid lines that go into the mouth of the prop, a ton of unioning like props together with like this stuff called bog. You know, you mix up like Bondo and fiberglass resin and micro balloons, which are like little glass bubbles to lighten the mix, because like if the heavier a prop is, the more like moment it has, the more like inertia it's got. And so if you move your head and the prop is either substantially long or substantially heavy, it's going to visibly trail the direction of your gaze.
Right.
And so you can make up for that as an actor by indicating way ahead of when the character is supposed to indicate, or you make up for that as a prop maker by making it incredibly light so that it just hits every mark that it's supposed to along with the actor. The downside of that being like you need to make it very rigid or it'll show that it's a floppy thing. And so that's part of the appeal of using like fiberglass everywhere, is that like it's stiff and light. And so a ton of props were, you know, a thin layer of fiberglass that gets then reinforced, or it would be like a layer of resin that's brushed in to get all the details, and then a layer of bog, you know, microbloons and resin and Bondo, and then thinnest layer of fiberglass we could get away with, and then specific spots built up so that we could drill and tap them and attach mechanisms to the interior of like an alien head.
Cool.
Yeah, so it was that. It was a little bit of sculpting. You know, you have a lot of big sculptures that are going together with water clay, and so there were a lot of all hands like sculpting. And so I would get sent over to the sculpting department. Usually the like machinists and the sculpting like don't get along super well. It's partially like a division of labor thing, but also like adhesives and like resins and sticky stuff is a real fucker for mechanisms. And
Right.
then oils and lubricants, grease, machining chips, like cutting fluid, they're a big fucker for the chemistry of like resins. And so both departments, like you will just by touching the other person's stuff with your dirty fingers, like you're going to fuck it up. And so there's also an amount of like, get your sticky child away from me. And so like I being like very like of low value, like I got sent over to wherever I was needed. But as you specialized more and more, became like a more senior, like I don't know, like Bob Mono was on this gig, and he was like, you know, full-time machinist all the time, and I was like, you know, just going around if someone extra was needed to like hold a big syringe in a bunny suit as we're like pumping like liquid latex into a thing. That was like I would be the person there holding the thing that is filling an alien tail
Cool.
with foam.
That rocks.
Yeah. Yeah, it was cool. It was cool like getting like during slow times I would get sent up into the Queen Alien to go like take out air servos and useful parts. That was cool. We spent a lot of time. ADI has all the big props from previous movies, or as many as they could get their hands on, up around their warehouse. They did. I think they moved locations recently. You know, passage of time. But there's the big graboid from Tremors.
Let's go.
Yeah, and it was opposite from the brain bug from Starship Troopers. You know, they're on opposite sides of the studios. And
I'm pogging.
Yeah. Oh, my childhood.
Yeah.
The fucking 90s.
What did the graboids smell like?
It smelled like Gamer Girl bathwater.
About
yes!
time, finally.
Yeah. We make it stink in there. And so the like we would do stuff like you get these Q-tips with like a long wooden like handle on them, and so they act a lot like an arrow because the cotton bud part acts sort of like the fletching on the back of an arrow, so it's really aerodynamic, and that means you can put it inside of 100 psi like air hose and just and shoot it all the way across the studio. And so we would, on the machine shop side, we would fill the graboid with these arrows, Q-tips, and they would do the same thing to the brain bug, which was my desk. So occasionally I would get hit with a shrapnel there. And then one time, one of the wackier there on every machining job, there were a couple of wacky like 9/11
nice.
conspiracy
Cool.
guys. You know, like
Yeah, I got
Joe
you.
Rogan
Yep.
listeners, like desert radio kind of guys.
That's right.
Really
The
smart,
correct
really
ones.
smart guys.
Yeah, like as an adult, I've noticed myself like not necessarily agreeing with them, but being like, man, I have weird opinions too, huh? But like I try not to say them at work. But like there would be, you know, there was always the group of guys who were like just a little bit too unhinged to rise higher in the
got you.
managerial hierarchy. And I remember one of them being like, "Hey, watch this," and put a ball bearing in an air gun, and then like fortunately it was at lunch, and shot it, and it went through like a 1/4-inch piece of plywood on the other side of the room, and everybody was like, "Well, that's it for me for a little bit. I'm going to leave so that if anybody comes back and finds this, they don't also find me."
Good, that's probably a good move, yeah.
Yeah, you just sort of like
Yeah,
take
that's
your
right.
smoke break at the same time. Yeah, like there was I got to sculpt a little bit of some predator alien hybrids, especially like the early ones that were like 3-foot maquettes. Did a bunch of tracking guns and heads and tails. I did some like foaming on the full body aliens, and then constructing like there are all these like different outfits that go under costumes to try and like make sure they're like strapped tightly to the actor, and like a bunch of like bits and bobs and buckles for those.
Cool.
Yeah, like I don't regret it at all. Like for me, like I try to find joy in making good things and making like a humane environment where like I try to make good parts that are also like I didn't leave a burr on it so that a person, you know, reaching their arm into this blind hole inside of an alien head to adjust like the spit valve up in it, you know, 6 months after I worked on it doesn't get their hand all cut up because I didn't fully finish this part.
Yeah.
Part of my thing is always trying to fight for like I don't know the people who are going to come after me, and even though I'm getting a lot of pressure to do this fast, I'm going to like get in trouble a little bit. I'm going to like be willing to get in a little bit of trouble to do it right. And so like finding joy in like, I'm going to figure out how to do these the best I can under the constraints, or like that I'm working with really smart people and learning. Like I kind of knew the movie wasn't there, and it was still
cool.
It was a great job.
Yeah, I mean, like I said earlier, general consensus is that the practical effects do look really cool in the movie. So clearly, whatever you guys were doing, it was correct.
Yeah, like I always, it started me off like after I did that, I did like a failed like documentary. Like I just went around interviewing people about like how you have made a thing. How does that work? Just like, 22-year-old kid just walking around being like, how do you do good things? How do you be cool? But like I felt working on that, it really gave me this strong sense of like the environment is doing so much of your thinking for you, where like the special effects artists were not like doing planning documents and doing lots of big high level stuff, but things came together really elegantly. And I think it was sort of like how a restaurant kitchen often goes, where it's like you have a lot of experience using your skills to adapt to different environments, and everybody is really good at adapting and getting what the program is. And so like I kind of feel that if you were able to, as a director, get the picture and allow those people to do what they're very good at, like direct people to what they're excellent at, you get something like The Lord of the Rings, where it's like the people who are doing this are super excited to be making props. And if you let them be nerds about it, they will give you something that is really exceptional. And I was so in awe of like people being like, no. So here's what we're gonna do. So like the hinge is like this. So if we make a little clevis, we can buy that from McMaster. We can put another couple of bolts on this. And I did this before on like Jumanji. And people would like break out these mechanisms or these ideas that were like really good fits for the problem without doing CAD. They'd be like, well, you break it down into the simplest set of things. So like this and this and this and this. And all of them I can like explain to you in drawings on a legal pad with just some measurements. And it's like, as long as you do this and this and this, it's going to go together fine. And it would, which is like so at odds with like my experience as a mechanical engineer, where like if everybody isn't coordinating really like intentionally with planning documents and stuff, things easily get like out of sync and fucked up. And it was sort of amazing seeing how well things went together in contrast to people who have like get paid way more and have much more education and mechanisms, like that the skill was understanding how to flex, how to like adapt to, this thing right here, the resources that we got right here, we have an objective. We're not going to try to make it in an ideal sense. We're going to try to be like, we have this brass sheet here, we have this aluminum here, we have these gears that are out of stock cabinet, we have this K&S stock. We can make this go together simply with just what's here on hand.
Cool.
Yeah, it was crazy.
It seems like a Sisyphusian task for any movie to be done in any kind of way, just with how many like teams there are doing separate things, and like having one cohesive vision between all of them seems like absolute madness.
Yeah, like I've never worked on something that I feel is on fire, where it's like everything is just going right and everybody knows what to do. I mean, in terms of like a big team of people that all get it at the same time. On every project, when I felt that way, it's a very narrow set of people where we're all really on the same page. Like a couple of years ago, I worked for Jeff Koons. Not super big on Jeff Koons, but the project, like, I think was put together well by smart people. Another one of those ones where you just got to find your shining light in it. And so like we ended up making something that was like very focused and very good. That's the sculpture that's now on the moon. That's the like Jeff Koons. It's called Moon Phases, and it launched. It was the Artemis mission Odysseus IM-1.
Cool. Hell yeah.
And like it's cool, but what we were able to do is sort of like fight for this vision that we sort of hallucinated together. We were all sort of like on this ayahuasca journey together of like inside of these constraints that we don't particularly like, inside of the vision for the art that we're like, we're not 100% on, like, we've got to do what Jeff's vision is because that's the job. We can't change that. Inside of that, how do we interpret that in a way that like is as cohesive and as beautiful as we can make it? And so we got to do stuff like, well, if it's going to be on the moon forever, like the pitch is forever, right? This is going to be a permanent museum to a moment in mankind's history. Then it's like, okay, so all the finishes, all the colors that Jeff wants, and all the engraving and the styling and the finishes, like getting these things up to a mirror polish, they have to last forever. How do you make a bright color last forever? And we like invented we didn't like invent it out of scratch, but we invented a process for like, okay, you know, steel, if you've ever seen the back of a motorcycle exhaust, steel has that like rainbow effect it'll get on it. Mm-hmm. And that is a color chart. Like that is a color chart that is basically a measurement of temperature and time. And so like you can get any color on that rainbow that you want out of steel as long as you are really highly in control of the finish, the temperature, and the time. And so like we were able to do that, like present Jeff with like a color chart of like, here are the steel moons, like here are a bunch of moons, here are their various, here are them all taken up to a mirror finish, and then we have this grid of like temperature and time. Which color in that do you like? And like what's cool about that is since it's a structural color, it lasts forever. There are pieces of armor that were blued in that way from like the 1100s that are still the same color that they were. They exist crazy. In like the Met Gallery. And it's like the cool part was figuring out like inside of this weird thing, how do I do something that is like special? And to me, I also like super value getting some deep knowledge out of it, where it's like I use this as a platform to do something I wouldn't have gotten to do any other way.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
You said, go ahead.
So like, you can probably make more money like machining regular ass things. Like there is a tax to doing something that is also cool. You get paid a little bit less because it's a little bit more cool. But it's like that opportunity to do something weird is like so invaluable to me.
Yeah, it's got to be an interesting perspective to be like a machinist, and your goal is not necessarily like the longevity of this part, but like it just needs to work a couple of times for it to be filmed. Like that's an interesting aspect to look at it with.
Yeah, that really kicks a lot of projects right in the nuts, where like I want to be careful about how I say this because so like there is a really good special effects studio, Spectral Motion. The head of mechanical engineering is like a mechanical genius, Mark Sertrakian, who has made, you know, really excellent props. If you've ever seen Robot Wars, where they had a trophy that was a upside down robot spider that was using its individual legs to spin a plinth that had a golden nut on it. Mark does really crazy mechanisms, and I literally got a call from Spectral Motion saying like, we need a machinist right now while I was graduating college. And it was for Hellboy 2, The Golden Army. And I was like, I am currently, literally, I am in my final presentation for getting my industrial design degree. Can I call you back in a week? And they were like, no. So I should have said yes and then been like, oh, they didn't have any flights. I should have lied. But like, would love an opportunity to like work with them. He's done a bunch of things, mechanisms for Jeff Koons, because Jeff Koons like has a couple of things that are like animatronic versions of classical sculptures. And one of the big challenges in that is the difference between having a thing articulate really well, which Mark is very good at, and having a thing be super durable, which is not really in the repertoire of special effects artists.
Right.
And so like one of the constant complaints that like came up at the studio was just like, the snake is not working the way it did on day one. And it's like, it's because it's doing its thing for 8 hours a day. And like the kinds of things that really work well on set, like that give you all of this ability to articulate, they're also like not designed to do the exact same thing a million times. And the design around like articulating like that a million times is actually a whole bunch of different mechanisms. Like the way to do that is different, because if you have like a wire control mechanism and you're puppeteering it by hand or by servo, like as it stretches out over multiple uses, you just like move the sticks more, or you tighten it up a little bit. You're like, oh, I've got a little play in this line, because like it's similar to brake lines on a bicycle. When you install them, after you've done a ride on them, you need to tighten them up again, because like they break in.
Yeah.
And so there are a ton of mechanisms like that, where it's like there are things that'll work once and they work great. Every squib, right? Like it only ever has to work once. There's no way to make it work again. And then there are like principal puppets where it's like this bearing should work 100 times, but if it works more than 100 times, we probably overbuilt it.
Right.
And then a thing that needs to work 1,000,000 times, like your bearing surfaces need to be really big, because it's like the more concentrated force we get in any particular direction, with the less surface area that we have on the bearing taking up that load, the more it's going to like waller out that hole into a teardrop shape. And then we're going to start having this thing knocking around. And so having everything based off of like a really tiny pin, so that we can get this very small point of articulation, and like, we have this life-sized crow blink its eyes. Like you can have a tiny pin doing that mechanism, like even though it's like pulling a lot of force because the prop, skin isn't built perfectly, there's some drag in it. Like you can have tiny mechanisms that operate forever, like in mechanical watches. It just takes a ton of refinement. You have to know exactly where all the forces are coming from, which means you have to do a bunch of different revs of the thing, which like very few people want to pay
That's
for.
fair, yeah.
Right.
So the delta between like different flavors of mechanical engineering, if a thing needs to like be repeatable forever, or be highly accurate, or be highly performative, like the choices that get made, that's been a cool part of my career, is just being in different zones where like the people are kind of doing the same thing, it's the same physics, but the choices they're making are like 100% different.
Yeah, I mean, that makes total sense. And I feel like a lot of that is kind of going by the wayside now with how everything is just filmed in a big green room.
Yeah, I'm very much against sameness. I have a big bias against, like, I think if you're doing a thing that has been done 1,000,000 times before and you want it to work the exact same way the other things have worked, I think it's completely okay. Like, I'm kind of into piracy and theft, and like, software should just be free. Like, because sure, you should be able to like pay your rent, but like Microsoft shouldn't be able to like sit on it. I mean, Microsoft does make good software. Think of somebody who does make good software. Like, I think the incentives to like, have Adobe make the program worse and charge you more every year entirely come from the fact that it's like, we did the work once, and now we're trying to figure out a way to keep getting paid for that same work. Like, I think if a thing functions well, it's like, great, we took a step forward as a species. Like, society took a step forward. We now have an answer to like how to do like, a Gaussian blur is just like an equation. It's a very well-known equation. It's just should be in the public domain, like penicillin. And so like there are lots of reasons that if you're trying to do the same thing that has been done before, that should just be like a book you can read, a free thing that you can implement. But I have a really strong bias to, if you don't have to have things work the same way everybody else has done. Like, if this isn't about having a safe car or, like, you know, a piece of factory equipment that is supposed to run continuously and cheaply for a long period of time, you have no reason on earth to make it the same as something somebody else has already done. Like, your art should be a reflection of not just you, but the people who work on it and the moment.
Yeah.
It should be weird in the same way, like, if you look at fashion from any era, just the choices are different because it's like, yeah, it's being pushed around by a bunch of stuff that has meaning now and it's not going to have meaning later. You don't need to try to make it look... It's like people trying to have, like, people dress on suits when they go on airplanes. It's like, why would you want
That sounds like it would suck. Then I'd be stuck on a plane wearing a fucking suit the whole damn time. Fuck that.
Yeah. And that was like, it had a particular meaning during a particular era. P.S. It was the thing that people were wearing in factories too. It didn't mean fancy. It didn't mean dressed up. It was like the style at the time, in the same way like you'll see like Hasidic guys on bicycles wearing like the whole suit. Like
right.
It is a thing that is like, that is what you do all across the board in a particular era. And like, that it's not that era anymore, and so like contemporaneously being like, you know, everybody's a slob because they dress in sweatpants on an airplane, and it's like, well, I spent the last 8 hours getting like felt up by a guy with a GED and then charged $19 for nuts. Like, you can't give me the shit. You can't tell me to be fancy here. I've been disrespected the entire time. Like, I think art should be weird. Like, I think you should have this really strong bias to like try to make things yours and idiosyncratic. And I think the process of like samifying things, whether it's like using ChatGPT to tell you what to make, or whether it is like a studio system being like, we did a study to figure out how to take all the parts of other movies that we thought made the money and put them into our movie, I think gets you a thing that doesn't have like new ideas or anywhere to go.
I mean, fully. Like, if you look at it, just character design for like monster design, when it was more of a practical effect based concept, like you had such a range of different monster designs through movies in like sci-fi and horror in 70s, 80s. And then now I feel like every time there's a like alien creature in a movie, it looks like the monster from Cloverfield or something.
Cloverfield,
just some generic like spider looking thing, and it's so boring to me.
Yeah, which is a weird process. Like, I don't have words for the kind of like semiotics. I'm trying to think of big college words. There's like there are second and third and fourth order ideas that have been done to death, and so like the way I think it happens is that there is a look now, an established look for monster that looks different. And so like, what is a regular monster? Well, that's Godzilla. Okay, so what is the monster that's cooler than Godzilla? Well, that is a monster with backwards legs that kind of looks like a spider, which is Cloverfield. And for some reason now that there is an established method for monster that looks different, that is the same monster in every movie.
Yep. Yeah, I feel like you have a lot more personality showing when it's, you know, a crew of people using some shit they have laying around to create something. Like, that is like ultimately more personalized and like more unique to your movie than just like, oh, I'm gonna download this you know, After Effects pack and we'll just load all of the same effects that everyone else uses and just slap it on top of a Blender model that someone made.
Yes. Well, it's also, you know, that Brian Eno quote about like the things that you find like distinctive or grating about a medium are going to be looked back on as like its signature and often charming uniqueness, its idiosyncrasies. The things that ring wrong to you about it now are going to be its style in the future. Yeah. I think that about so many things where like filmmakers will try to make a movie that is like of no particular time because the effects are so good. And it's like it has no particular style because we just made all the right choices. Everything was slick and cool. And then you look back at it 20 years later and it's like this is a glop that is very much 2002. This is 2002 glop. Like, this is not timeless. This has a whole bunch of concerns that were seen as like normalizing in a similar way to like there's a kind of like facial hair that you get if you're like a middle-aged guy and you kind of like watch TikTok or Instagram reels and you're sort of concerned with like aging and how you look. And like, you for some reason a lot of guys are like, the thing that I've been brushed to become is Gavin McInnes.
Yeah.
Where like I go to a barber shop that has a picture of me on the front, a guy with a little beard and a handlebar mustache, where it's like, that's like, by trying to be nothing in particular, you have ended up being a thing that in 20 years people will look back on and be like, that is a very particular kind of person.
Yeah.
And I think you should lean into the fact that like you're trapped in the moment. We're all trapped here in time. I'm not locked in here with you. You're locked in here with me. And like you should kind of accept that like your movie is going to look like a movie of its time. You can try to like run away from that, or you could lean into it being like, we're going to grab the things that are on the ground. We're going to use the people who have the ideas that they have right now and try to see what we can do with it. Because like in 10 years, there's going to be a different set of those just by like, you can't stop time.
For sure. Yeah. Like it's wild because like, in my opinion, maybe the best movie of all time is The Thing, John Carpenter, 1982. And like totally, a big part of the reason why I like that movie is because how good the effects look. But like going back and watching it now, it's wild how I'm watching that movie and I go, oh yeah, this movie definitely feels like it was made in the 80s. And the reason why is because it uses entirely practical effects that look different than all of the other movies I've ever seen. Like as you were kind of hinting at earlier when you brought up the 2011 thing, if that movie was made 20 years later, it would look like every single other movie that was made around that time, Yeah.
Like it's also with The Thing, you can tell now that they're puppets, but like one thing that is interesting about doing things that are like try to accept the medium of the time, like You've ever heard the story about like the first film that was ever played for an audience and it was of a train coming at the camera and people were like,
yeah, they thought it was like real and ran off.
Yeah.
Yes. Where like now we know better. Like now I am not scared of that happening to me, but there are still things that like there are definitely edits of videos where somebody like, that meme where like somebody would be selling you a car by like showing the first like couple of seconds of a person almost getting hit in the face with a baseball and then doing a match cut to like catch a brochure and being like Del Roy Auto Sales. Like that still gets me. Like there are definitely kinds of cuts and kinds of visual presentations that get me. Like I get pulled in even though I've lived with screens my whole life. I think that like you can look back on a set of tricks as quaint because you already know how all of them are done. And if you can invent a new trick, it's going to take people time to figure out what you're doing. Eventually they'll do it like The Matrix. Like everybody saw The Matrix and went like, I want to do exactly that. And since all of their tricks were already done, people did a lot of like, convincing slow-mo spin around, like, and then there were a lot of bad Uba Bowl versions of it. But people figured out how to do that, and now it's part of like the language of film generally, to the point at which like you can point at it and comment on it like it is now its own meme to use as something for something else, like how the like Christopher Nolan Dark Knight style like quick close editing where like you have like a punch have 9 cuts to it. Like to the point at which like Simon Pegg parodies it in Hot Fuzz with like old lady racking a shotgun and there are 9 shots following the shells
Yeah.
to the ground.
Right. I think another thing, like you're mentioning The Matrix, I feel like that it stands on its own a little more because, they're referencing, older, 70s and 80s kung fu movies and that a lot. And there's like homages, and then people see The Matrix and then they just remake The Matrix.
Yes.
And they're kind of losing that, like, oh, I'm putting my own personal spin on this instead of just, I'm just going to remake this exact same thing.
Yes. Because, like, I think in a lot of art, and, I got my degree in art, I sometimes, like, I don't want to seem too highfalutin being like, here's what art should be. Because it's like, but you're a machinist, you're a mechanical engineer. Like, I care, but I don't want to come off as, like, I'm a like philosopher and theorist. I'm all on top of things, but like I have this deeply held belief that like you should never want what somebody else has in terms of like they made the Matrix. The Matrix is really beloved. I want to make the Matrix. If I make the Matrix, I will be beloved because then you become real brain.
Exactly.
You become a person where it's like, people will love me when I say a cool line on screen. And I think the like a better thing to do with your art is to figure out like what made the Matrix good through the lens of the people who made it. And it's like, do I care about anything as much as the Wachowskis cared about like Buddhist philosophy and post-structuralism and kung fu and like didn't know it at the time, but being trans, like do I care about anything the way they cared about the set of things that they wanted to get across? And you need to make that the heart of whatever you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And if all you care about is looking cool, then you make like AvP to Requiem.
You need to have something to say.
I actually, that reminds me of something that I saw online the other day. Like, I'm not trying to start any Star Wars discourse here. That just happened to be what they were talking about. And I just saw some random post that came up on my feed where this guy was like, this is the explanation for the failure of the Star Wars sequel trilogy. And basically the way he described it was that when George Lucas made the original movies, his inspiration was like 30s serials, Flash Gordon, Kurosawa, etc., and he took all these like he took like all these disparate like different references and kind of congealed them together into the thing that he was making. And then later on, the other like later movies, like the sequel movies, they were like, all right, what is the reference points that we're going to use to make this movie? It's going to be the other Star Wars movies. Like they didn't go out of their way and pull in like external other influences. It's kind of like an AI image generator that is trained on other AI images that had already been made. And so it's like you're not really saying anything of substance because the only thing you're referencing is something that has already been done, So what new shit are you bringing here,
Yeah. Like there's this philosophical idea of open and closed infinities where like some things, like I worked for Lego, and at Lego, they're sort of like trying to turn everything in the world into a Lego equivalent. And so Lego can be infinite, but it's always going to be internally facing. It's a closed infinity where we're going to take things that we understand from the outside world and we can create an infinite number of different Legos out of the world. And then on the other side, you have like an open infinity where like you take the Matrix as like this thing could absorb anything in the world. We're not taking the whole world and like making it into the Matrix. We're trying to like have the Matrix interface with things that you might be familiar with. We're trying to describe the world in terms of this lens that is this piece of art. And you could potentially do that for any topic. Like you could potentially use that lens to look at anything. And I think this like notion, like obviously some philosophical concepts you'd be getting so far away from it, it wouldn't be the Matrix anymore. But like you can use a piece of art as a lens to look at anything and translate it through anything. And the moment that you're like going back to what made the first Star Wars popular to make the second and the third and the fourth Star Wars, like you're not filling it with new ideas, you're filling it with itself. Like you were talking about using the image generator to generate an image based off the last generated image. And there was like a study I read on it that was like, what happens if you do that? Are there archetypes? And it turns out that there are like a small number of image archetypes that like if you keep using an image generator on itself, be like, hey, describe this image, now generate an image of that. What it will do is eventually like get down to a locus of one of basically 12 images, that there are these like memes that like it kind of has baked into it, and it will like regress everything towards the mean of like, this is sort of one of the 12 kinds of images that I really understand. And I feel like for a piece of art, you should be actively trying to not repeat those things, because those things are basically your failing score. Those are cliches. Like what you have now is a diagram of cliches. Yeah. And what you should be doing is anything to get outside of that, because that's also the limitations of your ability to like say and understand things. If you can't step outside of those cliches, you really don't have any leverage to introduce anything new.
For sure.
Very fair. Do we have any closing thoughts on any of the topics we've covered? I guess we've kind of had a wide range.
Let's see. I mean, like, you know, love with your entire heart.
Like dance like no one's watching.
Dance like no one's watching. Let people just enjoy things.
Sorry. Speaking of people enjoying things.
Yeah.
I had something I baked up real quick. I just wanted to run it past you all.
Yeah.
I pulled a bunch of reviews.
All right.
From Letterboxd. These are either 5-star reviews or half-star reviews. And I'm going to read them to you, minus any information that would spoil what it was about. And I want you to tell me, is this about Alien vs. Predator 2 Requiem? Okay. Or is it about a different film?
Okay.
Are we a team, or are we playing against each other? How does this work? Okay, gotcha.
It doesn't
okay,
matter.
cool.
The points don't really matter. It's
okay.
Just for fun. Here's a 5-star review. What can I say? Fucking awesome. Plus, blank is the GOAT. Do you think someone left a 5-star review saying that about
how big is the blank?
How many letters? I will not say.
Oh man,
it is a one word
blank. If it was Dwayne
blank.
The Rock Johnson, it'd be a very big blank. That'd be telling.
I
will say it is a
I
one
am
word
going
blank.
to say it is not about Requiem.
Okay.
I'm going to be contrarian. Yes, it is about Requiem.
And the blank being?
The blank
Predalien?
being the Predalien.
Okay. Incorrect. This was for the movie Bumblebee, and Bumblebee was the GOAT.
Bumblebee was the goat.
Okay, sure.
Okay.
What is okay, this is a 5-star review. What is everyone's problem with this movie? If it came out 10 years earlier, it would have been a cult classic. Instead, people act like it committed a crime. It delivers exactly what it promises. Brutal action, a bigger scale, and a darker tone than the first one.
I'm going to say this is a
going to
review for
guess
Wicked.
that this is a review for Requiem.
This is
Swish.
a 5-star review for Requiem.
Damn. I was hoping it was a person who thought Wicked was a sequel to The Wizard of Oz.
All right. No, just no. Oh, sorry. This is a half-star review. No, just no. Too many things happened. Why did I need a close-up of a man's ass in a thong? Why did it need to take place in the pyramids? At best, blank was so great in the 5 minutes he was on screen.
This is a review for Borat.
I'm going to guess that it's not Requiem, because I do not remember there being a man's ass in a thong in that movie. So
It's AvP 1, right?
It is Transformers: Revenge of the Fallen.
No.
Okay. Oh yeah, that's right.
Push the
There
cube
is a
into my
man's
chest.
ass in a thong in that movie. That's right. Shit.
5 stars. Action-packed, weird, horny, hilarious, and epic. My favorite blank movie.
Shit.
I can't think of what movie that is, but that can't be Requiem. It is not a horny movie.
I guess the pregnancy stuff is. I'm going to say Requiem. Let's try it.
That was a trick question. That was also Revenge of the
nice.
Fallen Transformers.
Aw.
Okay, so that is that is
Zero. I'm
3
gonna zero.
Transformers movies you've used so far. All right.
Half star. This really felt like a situation that warranted more than one blank. That's the full review.
Huh. How many stars?
Half of a star.
Half of a star. It needed more blank.
More than one blank. It had one. It needed more than one blank.
That's got to be a Requiem review because there's only one Predator in it.
Sure, I'm going to go with that.
All right. For the last question, you both get a point there. It was a
Yes.
half-star review for Requiem.
Thank God. Okay.
All right. Well,
Hell yeah,
that was a little game I had cooked
that
up.
rocked. That rocked. I loved it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, shit.
Hey, thank you
Yeah.
for giving us your time and for having probably the most insightful conversation we've ever had on.
Yeah,
on this
you are
podcast.
definitely way smarter than I am. So you had a lot more interesting stuff to say than I ever would have given the opportunity. So
Thank you. Like I wish I could like do something that is like good and interesting that is not like just I'm having an interesting time with the things that I've experienced and like learned through my career of like generally making crap. Like I try to do a good job, but I generally make crap. Like cuz like for most of my career it's like, you know, I will try to take interesting things, but it's very difficult in the world of like art or like a lot of stuff that I've worked on has been like artists who need a prototype or like a sophisticated version of like an idea they had executed according to their vision. And a lot of the artists who have enough money to like do that whole hog are also like weird people who are also sort of kind of an investment, like a hedge fund, like they're a combination of artist and like hedge fund. Like they're like an institution, and it often means that what I'm making is like it's much more important that it like looks good and makes a lot of money than it is like artistically valuable.
A product.
Yeah, and like it is really cool when you do get to work on and put your whole ass into like somebody's little passion project, like a thing that someone's really trying to do something on because it's like a whole different kettle of fish.
Yeah.
And like I don't know, if I can like button this up with anything, like the lesson I've learned through this entire podcast is like just do your thing.
For sure.
Just do your thing. Yeah.
Just do your thing.
Yeah, Predalien taught me to be weird.
I think that's probably a good note to end on. So
Well, thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Do you have anything you want to plug while you're here?
Holy shit. I have gotten off social media. Like
Nice.
I have like tried to remove my presence from the internet because like I'm sort of the opinion the internet is bad for you. I don't know. Join
There
the
you go.
YKS Discord.
perfect.
Hey, all right.
Yeah, if you want to if you want to talk to me, you need to pay this
That's right.
other podcast to
That's
do it.
correct. Cool. Well, I sincerely appreciate you taking the time to come on and talk to us on this show. It has genuinely been a hell of a lot of fun.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for
Appreciate
having
it
me.
a lot.
Yeah, thanks for poking this
Cool.
up.
You can find me on Twitter and the PSN and Blue Sky at CYHOBBEZ. You can find the show on Twitter at Crew Expendapod, on Blue Sky at Crew Expendable, on Instagram and Threads, both at at crewexpendablepod. Our website is crewexpendable.net. Our email address is mother@crewexpendable.net. Our YouTube page is youtube.com/@crewexpendable. Our donation page is coolerbot.net, and our bonus show feed, Crew Expandable, is at coolerbot.transistor.fm.